Welcome back to Movie Summary. Today we are diving into a film called Blame. The movie focuses on Abigail, who came back to school after an incident last year there. She is bullied by the other classmates, especially Melissa, who seems to be the rebel of the class. A new teacher, Jeremy, prepares a play for the school, and he and Abigail has been getting close as they both share the same passion for theater. One rainy day, he offers to give her a ride back home. He drops her home and she is so happy to have spent some time with him. She smells perfume on her clothes. Meanwhile, he gets back home to his wife, who is mad at him for coming late. She arranged a meeting with someone who could have hired him at a big company. Jen doesn't know what's going on with him and truly doesn't like him being a teacher. Later that night, it's pouring and Melissa and her friend Sophie are toasting for being mean to Abigail. The next day at school, Jeremy tells everyone from now on he will be playing the male lead with Abigail. Both rehearse after class with a girl named Ellie, who is always in the theater listening to them while they think they are alone. Melissa keeps seeing them both always together. It gets her irritated. During class, Jeremy announces he picked what scenes will showcase the ones from the group most involved. Of course, Melissa's name is not called. Another teacher then calls Jeremy out for a second and Melissa makes fun of Abigail, saying she is falling in love with him. Abigail screams to her to shut up. She comes close to her and drops Melissa's stuff, but when Melissa stands up, Abigail plays the victim and Jeremy reprimands her. Melissa is infuriated while Jeremy comforts Abigail. Later that day, they rehearse by themselves like usual, but the tension becomes so big that they end up kissing. They then hears noise. It's Ellie, who is shocked of what she just witnessed. She goes to another room where Sophie comes to her to confess something. She finally made love to Eric, but it was a bad experience, so Eric had been ignoring her for a week now. She asks to come to her house later. Meanwhile, Melissa is in her room being mad while researching Abigail. Jeremy then calls Jen and tells her he wants to talk to her. She arrives and he tells he wants to do this with her. They then make love, but while doing so he can't stop seeing Abigail. So he imagines making love to Abigail. On the other side, Ellie is comforting Sophie. While she goes to the bathroom, Sophie looks into her diary and sees written, "Jeremy kissed Abigail." She is shocked and calls Melissa to tell her. Melissa gets so mad, and the next day at school she can't stop looking at her. Especially that Jeremy is right next to her rehearsing. Abigail asks him to rehearse after school today like usual, but today he can't, he has a lot going on. She gets sad to hear that. That same night Abigail is upset, so she makes her costume, which she presents to him the next day, hoping they can rehearse after school again. But Jeremy rejects again, saying he has a lot going on. She gets more and more frustrated as Jeremy is taking his distances. She then tries call him after school, but it goes to voicemail. One night, Melissa is searching relationships between student and teacher online. Sophie reminds her homecoming is tomorrow. The next day, she goes to Ellie's house to get ready, and of course she gets a glimpse of Ellie's diary again. But there is no more new pages because Jeremy stopped rehearsing with her after class. The homecoming finally begins. Both girls arrive and Melissa takes Sophie to the side to talk. Ellie seems pretty annoyed as she is standing there waiting. Sophie invites her to come with the group. They step out to get some drinks, but Ellie doesn't drink. Sophie admits to her she read her diary and thinks she should report it to the school. Ellie is shocked. She looked into her diary and can totally see that it's Melissa who wants it to happen. She screams that Melissa is just jealous of Jeremy and Abigail. Melissa tells her to shut up and she leaves. Later that night, Melissa takes hot pictures of herself. But her dad enters witnessing it. He gets mad and smashed her computer. So she goes to sleep with Sophie. The next day at school, she shows the pictures to Eric and his friend, who are so excited. Abigail then enters dressed very hot. Melissa is shocked. But she has a plan. She makes enough noise so Jeremy asks her to bring the phone. She does, and he sees the hot pictures but doesn't care. Abigail is observing the whole situation. After school, Jeremy is about to leave, but Abigail catches up to him before he gets in his car. She tells him her necklace is gone, so she wants to get in his car to search for it. He refuses, but she insists. She also wants him to pick her up tonight, but Jeremy doesn't want anything to do with her and leaves. This makes the poor Abigail upset. She is now obsessed. She calls him phone non-stop that night and he is tired of it. The next day at school, Jeremy passes her a note saying, "Let's meet at the theater after school." Abigail gets a smile on her face while Melissa is observing her. Right after, a student bumps into her and Sophie pretends to help while grabbing the note. Melissa, aware of their meeting, goes to Jeremy before Abigail arrives. Her friends are talking to Abigail to stall her. Melissa then gets close to Jeremy and asks him why didn't he pick her for the role and picked Abigail. She tells him she just wanted him to notice her. She kisses him by force and he gets mad, leaving. Abigail sees them and Melissa touches her lips, making her understand they kiss. The next day, Melissa finds Abigail's necklace, wears it, and when she sees it she gets mad at her. Both girls then argue and Melissa tells he is a great kisser. Abigail pushes her but Melissa slaps her, making her so angry that she gets scared. The class starts and Jeremy notices Abigail is absent. Later, the teaser showing in costume is about to start but Abigail is nowhere to be found. Jeremy searches for her and is sad. Melissa is happy. But not for long, as her face turns pale when Abigail finally shows up. Her scene then begins with Jeremy. Melissa gets so furious and bursts out of the theater while removing her clothes. Abigail on her side executes a screaming performance towards Jeremy and leaves right after. Melissa on her end arrives to Miss Cohen, the principal of the school. She wants to report an incident. Jeremy runs after Abigail, who screams at him, "What's going on with Melissa?" She then bursts in tears, asking why did he kiss her if he didn't want to be with her. She cries and he tries to calm her down. Then brings her in his car and drives off with her. During the ride, he touches Abigail's hand. Meanwhile, Melissa is reporting the incident to the principal. Miss Cohen asks her how is she feeling. The police is brought to question her. She lies to him that Jeremy slept with her. On the other side of town, Abigail brings Jeremy to her house. He enters as she goes slowly upstairs. At the questioning, Melissa's dad enters and it makes her angry. But she continues by lying that Jeremy asked her for pictures after class one day. She adds that he kissed her in the theater yesterday. That he even left a note in her locker to practice with her. Melissa goes as far as crying while describing it. The dad, is hearing the whole thing, is in disbelief because we realizes she is talking about him. He is the one who really was doing it to her. And that's why her emotions was so real as she ended up describing them. The police officer realizes it and the dad stands pushing Melissa go back home. But the officer tells him to step out while Melissa is crying to get him out of her. On the other side, Jeremy goes to Abigail's room but instead of making love, he gives her a hug while she bursts in tears. He kisses her on the head and leaves. The next day at school, Melissa arrives for the first time without makeup. She sees her friends hanging out without her and Abigail, who stops and stares at her. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other movie summaries we have on our channel.